Well, I've just been to this conference in Frieberg, Germany, with international Nobel laureates. And the story is that by 2050, the Earth's going to be 3 degrees hotter, and by the end of the century, it's going to be 6 degrees hotter, which is antithetical to life, certainly our life. We won't survive. And so I look at these beautiful young children, and I'm going to see my grandson, Liam, soon in Boston, who I love so much I could eat him. He's so gorgeous. They're not going to survive. And I see no evidence at all in this country that anything is fixing it. All SUVs should be banned, mandated. People driving their little children to ballet in tanks, doing 5 miles to the gallon. People leaving their lights on all night. You know, using clothes dryers when people should be hanging their clothes out in the nuclear reactor in the sky when it shines, and bring them in and hang them next to your furnace in the winter. Increases the humidity. I see the Congress organised by the corporations. The Occupy movement is fantastic, and I think that's one hope. But then I look at America and most people don't vote. In Australia, voting is compulsory. We get fined $50 if we don't vote. Everyone votes. Down syndromes up to, Mensa people. Everyone votes. We consider it a great privilege. So I say to people here, if you don't vote, you should go and live in Yemen. You have no right to live in a democracy unless you vote. Should be compulsory. 1. 2, then when people vote, they don't know who their congresspeople are or their senators. And what people don't understand is in a democracy, those people are your representatives and you are their leaders. The president is not your leader. He is your representative. So if you don't get to know your representatives every time they come home and educate them, make them read this. Say, if you don't read this, I'm going to door knock and make sure you don't get elected. Then they'll read it. Or this one, nuclear power is not the answer to global warming because most politicians are scientifically and medically absolutely illiterate. They're lawyers who know no biology. My brother's a lawyer. They grease the wheels of everything that happens, or they're businessmen. And they don't, mostly men, don't understand biology, radiation biology. So people need to get to know who their senators are and their representatives and educate them. And if people don't do that, into the vacuum that is created and left, walk the corporations. So it's sort of QED, isn't it? A plus B equals C. I mean, it's obvious this is going to happen. Okay, so we can fix global warming. How? Well, I commissioned a study 2 years ago by Arjun Makhijani, a brilliant plasma physicist, and David Freeman. I don't know if you know who he was, but he was Carter's science advisor. He put the solar panels on the White House. He turned down the thermostat. Jimmy Carter wore a cardigan, which some people didn't like. They thought it was a bit infra-dig for Jimmy to go on television with a cardigan. And when Reagan got elected, he took off the solar panels and turned up the thermostat. But he's a brilliant guy, David Freeman, and I held a conference called Global Warming and Nuclear Power, and at the end of 2 days, very intense discussion with the leading scientists in the world, he stood up and said, we can have all the energy we need with no carbon and no nuclear. And I said, David, you're kidding. He said, no, we can. So I commissioned this study, and this is the prescription for survival. There is enough technology now which is really cheap to supply the whole country with renewable energy right now. I've just been in California. Why isn't every house covered with solar panels? I mean, I can't believe it. The sun's pouring down. And imagine if they did that, the GDP would go up, millions of people would be employed. Solar panels covering all the parking lots so that you get your electric car from China, you plug in your car, and you drive your electric car with solar power. Take it home, plug it into your house at night. There's enough wind west of the Mississippi to supply the whole country with 3 times the electricity America needs. You have to upgrade the grid. That's good, more jobs. Geothermal energy is available. Cogeneration, and Americans waste 28% of the electricity they use. They waste it, leave all the lights on. The sense of entitlement is extraordinary. I'm in Europe, the corridor light turns on, in 3 minutes it automatically turns off. If you all stop using clothes dryers, you almost wouldn't need nuclear power. Well, GE makes good things for life, doesn't it? Irons, electric stoves, refrigerators, clothes dryers, nuclear power plants, because you've got to use the electricity they generate by having, clothes dryers, nuclear weapons, nuclear missiles, and they're presently arming space. So I wrote a book about this with someone else called War in Heaven, and the corporations now are putting weapons in space. So America dominates, it's called the High Frontier, and they're going to fight war from space down to Earth, and it's happening as I speak. Well, they've got to steal your tax dollars somehow, don't they? So this is the prescription for survival. It's so exciting. Nuclear power provides 20% of your electricity and you waste 28%. QED. I read this when I was in the bath and I felt like Archimedes when he discovered his principle. Remember, he was in the bath and the volume of water displaced equals the volume of his body, and he ran naked down the street saying, "I've just developed the Archimedes principle." And I felt like leaping out of the bath saying, this is the prescription for survival, which indeed it is. And it's being used by Texas, Utah, and other states. So this is your prescription for survival, and I want PSR to take this and really get it out there, because don't let anyone tell you that we have to have nuclear or coal or oil. We can stop the whole thing like now. So that's one answer, and we can close that whoops reactor down in Hanford because you all own it and it's publicly owned. So there are ways to do that. There are people here that will organise and help you do that. You've got to. There's a huge amount of spent fuel at that reactor, much more than at Fukushima. And I'll get into that in a second. So that's the answer to global warming.